The mind-blowing thing about Klaus that most people don't realize is it's just completely hand-drawn. See? Somehow this film manages to look soft, dimensional, atmospheric, and almost 3D at times, while still being 2D animation, with the help of 3D elements here and there. The artists at the SPA studios use some incredibly smart visual techniques to push the drawings further. The shape design of it, the lighting, the acting, even the silhouettes and staging. And honestly, that's what makes this movie such an eye candy to watch. Because under all that beautiful rendering and lighting, it's still just drawings. Thousands and thousands of drawings. So, in this video, let's break down some of the smartest things that the artists at the SPA studios did visually and see how they transformed something that could have looked flat and traditional into something that looks like this. One of the biggest reasons Klaus looks so visually satisfying is the way the characters are designed. Not just the rendering and the lighting like I said, but the actual shapes underneath the drawings themselves. And once you start noticing these shapes, it becomes almost impossible to unsee them. Let's start by looking at the characters. And by the way, if you stick to the end, you'll also learn how you can use the same ideas in your own drawings and character designs. But before we jump to the breakdown, let's look at the puzzle piece number 1, the shape design. There's a very specific shape language happening throughout the Klaus that makes these characters feel incredibly appealing. And one of the biggest ideas behind that appeal is something called the force shape. It's basically a combination of a straight and a curved line, and together they create this beautiful D shape, almost like a lemon slice. Let me paint that in. Now, this might look simple at first, but this is actually one of the most important ideas in the entertainment design. Because appealing shapes are almost never random. They are designed very intentionally to create rhythm, clarity, and visual appeal overall. And once you understand how these shapes are used in the design process, you will start spotting them in almost every well-designed stylish character. Look at all of these examples. These characters use the force shape to create that strong sense of appeal that we still remember them to this day. And now, let's look at our main character around which this Christmas adventure comedy is actually based on. The royal postmaster forces his lazy and spoiled son named Jesper to become a postman and sends him to this freezing northern island called Smearensburg under one condition: post 6,000 letters or lose the family fortune. Yikes. Well, let's put Jesper on the chopping block first. And for this one, we'll quickly put on our force glasses. Let's begin. So, here I chose a great frame from the movie. You can see the Jesper here, emoting with his hands, great expression, everything's super good. And you will actually see me starting out with the big shapes first. Now, the biggest shape that I can see is the face, and then you will see me drawing a curve on the screen right side, and on the screen left side, I'm drawing a straight, giving me that force shape, and then using the center lines to depict the eyes or the placement of the eyes. And then basically even in the nose you will see me using that straight to curve design, including the eyebrows here too. See? So straight to the curve design right there. Now we'll go and place the eyeballs, and then over the eyeballs you can place the eyelids for the body. Even in the eyes it is basically a straight and a curve, and putting in the iris and then putting in some highlights for the kiss of light. Once this is done, then you can always manipulate the shape to look exactly what the character looks like. You know, some fleshiness here and there, the position of the mouth, as he's kind of smiling in this quirky way, you'll see the cheek kind of pushing up, the straightness of the hair, right? And here also at the same time, as the hair is coming out of that hat, you see me again using a straight and a curved design. Want to make sure that whatever you're putting, let's say I'm drawing this hat here, I'm just using the structure. After this is just mostly drawing the hat, you know, finishing it up, and then you will see me putting a center line afterwards here. And in most of the cases like this is pretty much done, but I'm just adjusting a few things here and there. You see I'm changing the shape, making sure everything has that straight to curve design. I also want to keep it fairly accurate because it's already an existing character, right? So I don't want to change much. Small things can change the personality and make a character entirely different, right? So this is it, and we are done with the drawing. Here is our rough constructed drawing. And now we want to understand the overall shape breakdown of this image. I want to break it down for you guys so you can understand how these shapes are working together in order to create this appeal. Let me turn down the opacity for this one so we can see the shapes very clearly. And I'll begin with the biggest shapes again. So basically that's the face. Now usually at the ends I would round it off, and this is something we would call a force blob. This is what students would practice, in the beginning of their shape journey. And here you can see at the back of the head also, I have placed another shape. I'll be toning that with another color here. Right? There we go. And together, these shapes are making our head for the character. The second big shape is in the nose here. You can see it's again a straight to the curve design. You can slice this D shape with this lemon slice and it would still be called a 4 shape because the contrast of the straight to the curve is still there, right? Let's tune that in. And yeah, I'll start to break down more and more shapes over here. I know that other eyebrow is not exactly straight to the curve design, but at the very end, you just need to remember it's not going to be there 100% of it, but it's going to be like mostly there, right? So you can always make changes. You can have this straight to curve design and you can make changes to it afterwards, right? Here I'm doing the hair. You can see again the straight to curve design. 2 of them, yep. Even the ear here is a straight to curve design. Here you see me do the eyes, breaking down into 4 shape. It's actually 2 of them, you know, 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, right? There we go. And then the iris is in the middle. And there we go. So that's most of it. Try it out. Let me know down in the comments if it works for you. And let's move to the next part. Now remember that it's not just Jesper, but it extends to almost all the character designs in the movie. Here's a breakdown of Alva, the teacher character, and Mrs. Krum. Now for the next one, I would love to show you a breakdown of Mr. Klaus himself. Wow, I love the lighting of this one. See, this is no action pose, this is no dynamic pose, but it is so emotional. He's not doing too much also, he's just standing and looking at something. And even if you haven't watched the movie itself, but you can still feel what the frame is trying to communicate. See? That's the magic. Okay, very much just like Jesper, we are going to start with a big shape, straight to curve design, and then I'm going to put horizontal and vertical lines. We'll start with the nose. Nose is made out of these multiple shapes, basically 2 shapes here. And I'm going to use this very special technique called chopping here. Chopping is basically putting a break, right? Putting a stop in a curved side, which makes the shape looks more choppy, more stylized, more sharp. And then after that, it's basically mostly the same. You're using a straight to curve design and making small changes here and there. Now, Mr. Klaus is an old man, so we need to draw the wrinkles and stuff, as you can see in the reference. And, you know, adjusting, drawing the hair. This is my favorite part in this one because the mustache, the beard, it's all made out of these multiple 4 shapes, as you can see. All the hair around him also. And then obviously it's not 100% there, but it's like 90% 4 shapes and then making a few more shapes, you know, a little bit symmetrical or according to the character, to the pose. Yeah, you can basically change all that, but you can see how clear the base design is using the straight and the curve to create this contrast. And after a little bit of tweaking, here is our final sketch. I'll turn down the opacity for this one, and then in most of this part you will see me drawing the shapes, breaking them down and toning them with different colors. As you will see, what is really happening here is either one thing is made out of that one 4 shape, right, a straight to the curve design with chopping involved, or you will see a series of shapes. So one shape leads us into another shape, and that leads us into another, and so on and so on, like you can see here in the mustache. And then that's about it, right? I know it looks a little bit overwhelming, but once you know how to actually work with those shapes, then it's just basically like very easy, right? One shape leads us into another shape. This is the equation that you have to keep in mind. And with, you know, toning off all the shapes, this is how it finally looks like. After breaking it down, I cannot hold myself from painting this. Like I told you guys, it's such a great frame. I love this one. Great emotions, great acting. The lighting itself is just enhancing the mood here and the emotions. And I thought I would use this as an excuse to tell you guys how to use the shapes in order to create the lighting and the rendering. Technically, what you guys need to do is you need to create this final line art. Now for this demo, I actually haven't created a final clean line art, but whatever your final line art looks like, you can just put it at the very top in the layers panel. And then underneath it, you can create the base layer. As you can see in the mustache and the beard, I've chose this very warm white, you know, which you can also see in the reference. And for the skin, it's basically, again, a base color. And then on top of that base layer, you can create a shadow layer, right? So this is what the order looks like. At the very top, the sketch layer, your line art. And underneath that, the shadow layer. And then on the third place, that would be your base layer. Then in the shadow layer, like I said, you can use the blending modes if you want to. You don't have to go that technical. Here I'm not using anything, I'm just using pure colors. And the basic goal for the shadow layer is to separate out the two families, right? The light family and the shadow family. So you can start to feel that light hitting your character, right? Your illustration basically. At this stage where I can start to see most of the light and shadow, it looks three-dimensional, I can safely turn down my brush size and start to working on the details. Most of the people, they want to get to this stage very early in the process, which I completely understand, but you don't want to do that, right? I would not recommend that. You need a very solid base to start working on the details. Here is me painting the clothes and all the parts that are missing from the illustration as of now, and obviously as you're painting it, you need the light and shadow. I really love the texture his clothes possess, so that is great to experience and paint. And then you might have observed that I've put the line art into the mix, because 2D animation, line art would always be present in the final product, so I want it to look just like the reference. And with some little bit of tweaking and experimentation with blending modes and layers, this is my final result. Hopefully you like this one. After seeing this, you start realizing it's not just the body or the silhouettes that are appealing. Even the hand acting is incredibly well designed. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Recently, our new Force How to Draw Heads, Ends, and Feet book launched, and while working on it, I studied a lot of hand references. Some of my favorites were Glenn Keane's Tarzan's hands and Jesper hands from Klaus. Now think about this for a second. For every second of animation, the artists are drawing around 12 drawings by hand. And these aren't random drawings either. Every pose is carefully designed to communicate emotion, movement, and appeal. Now imagine doing that for an entire full-length movie. So let's break down some of Jesper's hand design. So basically for this, I took the same frame. I think the hand acting amazing there. It's showing a lot of motion. I started with the straight to curve design. And here for the fingers, you can see I just grouped all of them using those two force shapes. And then once you get this force shape, then you can break down the fingers with it. I toned it down just for the clarity. And then later on, once you get the shapes and the gesture, once you're happy with that, then you can make changes according to the character itself. Enjoy the rest of the demo. This is why I love drawing with Force, because once you start analyzing great animation like this, you naturally start bringing those ideas into your own work. The next time you watch a film, don't just watch it. Take screenshots, break the designs down, look for the force shapes, and start using them in your own work. That's honestly one of the best ways to grow as an artist. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so it helps us to make more videos like these. With that said, I'm Jesper, signing off. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bye.